Hi, I'm Ryan Baylor. You're listening to the Bonsai Time Podcast. Container on.
Hey everyone, this is your host Kevin, and this is the Bonsai Time Podcast, your place for history, horticulture, and having fun. And today's episode has been sitting in our vault for a while, aging like a fine wine. And trust me, it was worth the wait. Kelly and I had the chance to sit down with none other than Michael Ryan Bell. He gives us a masterclass as we dive into his life, swap some great stories, and explore everything from Japanese bonsai terminology and pots to the cultural differences between Japan and the West, and how that shapes the way we think about bonsai and the pots we use. Before we get into it, a quick shout out to you, our listeners. Whether this is your first episode or you've been with us from the start, we really appreciate you being a part of this community. If you've got feedback or ideas, reach out at bonsaitimepodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to hang out with us in real time, join the Bonsai Time Podcast chat on Discord. All right, let's get into it. Enjoy the episode, have a laugh with us, and always remember, bonsai on. Real quick, have you done a podcast before for yourself as far as bonsai related? I don't think I've heard
I haven't actually.
Exciting. Awesome. We get first dibs. Cool.
No, this will be a first for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you. You just got back from California, right?
Yes, sure did.
Nice.
It was pretty busy. I had a lot of fun. I think I had 5 lectures and multiple appraisal appointments. And it was definitely not a vacation.
Okay.
It was
good.
It was a lot of fun though.
Nice. Good. So you're feeling better? I know you said you were feeling kind of
yeah.
ill. Good. Okay.
Yeah. So I immediately went back to work, and we've been pretty busy. Last night we had this big food and wine festival in town and had the after party at our restaurant, which was a surprise. Yeah. So I ended up stuck there pretty late. But I'm back and doing the chef thing again, and ready to go back into that other personality and talk about pots. Where I am at the restaurant, it's like the opposite of where I am normally when I do pots. Like when I go to California, it's like the vast majority of people I'm doing appraisals for, usually older Japanese Americans and guys that have been in bonsai for a really long time. And then at the restaurant, it's like everybody's under the age of 30. And like I'm the oldest guy in the room. And then, I go do the pod thing, and I'm always like the youngest guy in the room most of the time. So it's a personality switch, but I enjoy it,
For sure. How long have you been cooking now? I know when I moved to Ohio, we got on the banter of chefing and life and the kitchen life and the good and bad.
Years now.
Holy wow.
Since I was 15. So 32 years. And I would say probably 25 years I've been a chef. I've been actually like serious about it. And I took 7 years off to do the pottery thing full time. I was working on, the website, and I traveled around a lot doing lectures to clubs and appraisal stuff. And I missed it almost immediately. So I'm back doing that full time. And
the pirates of the kitchen call you back to the ship, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I adore it. It's a very hard job. It's really easy to get burned out on, but I adore everything about it.
Hell yeah. How did that lead? Well, with cooking, right? You meet so many different people and personalities, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you get into plants initially? Was it specifically just bonsai, or was it other things? Or my original forays into bonsai were probably like, I guess, chef related to a certain extent. There's 2 stories I like to tell. One's the illicit version. We'll go with the clean version here, and stay away from like spicy,
the Tommy.
Spicy.
Maybe we'll stay away from like the spicier Tommy version of this podcast. Where you have to have a warning on the front. But we'll just say that I was growing things in my closet, herbs for my culinary career. And I had a friend at the time in college who knew that I grew things, herbs in my closet. And he left to go to Europe for like a 3-month trip. Okay. And so he had these 2 ficus bonsai that left with me because he knew I'd be watering them, and I took very good care of the culinary herbs under lights in my closet. So
and you were cooking at this time, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
No, not with these herbs, but I was cooking at the time, and it was a friend from college, not a culinary friend, but he was actually an agriculture and horticulture major, and he was just like slightly into bonsai type of deal, and he had these two ficus bonsai, so he left them with me to take care of while he was gone. And I took care of them for, several months. And, I just kind of was like, all right, this is kind of cool, and that's how I got back into growing them. Of course, I grew up in the 80s. So like a lot of kids, I did have like that initial Karate Kid juniper that died within a month. So that was the foray back into bonsai for me. But that's how I got into it a little more seriously.
And you're in Louisiana now, or no, Mississippi now?
Mississippi, yeah. Okay. Almost as bad. Not quite, though.
Depends on the day. What? Where were you at in where you were living?
This would have been North Carolina when I first got back into bonsai. And then I moved to Mississippi a couple years after that. And I started doing chef stuff a lot more seriously. And as I was doing so, it started to get, extremely stressful, as chef work can be. Yeah. And I was looking for an outlet, a hobby release that was like the opposite of chef work. And at the time I thought that, bonsai would be something relaxing and easy. That would be totally exactly. Yeah. What a terrible decision that was. And so it would be something that I could kind of, get away from the whole, hustle and bustle and spirit and competition of chef work. Yeah. And then just dove in kind of heads first. Within a year, I was serious about it and started moving along from the sticks and pots phase and stuff. So, then it became more stressful than the chef work. So, I think like a lot of guys, it was a way for me to get away from, that stressful environment into something that's a little bit more peaceful. And at the end of the day, when you're not, really focusing on wiring and styling and showing trees, it is relaxing, especially for me now, since I'm not doing so much showing and it's a hobby type thing. So the opposite of chef work, that's what got me into it. And it's still that way today.
Kelly, have you done any cooking? Had any experience within the kitchen or kind of food anyway, anytime in your career?
I've taken some cooking classes.
Okay. Yeah, no, as I'll explain real quick, with like the fine dining you're doing, right, Ryan? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes. I grew up in food trucks in Portland. And so it's a little Wild West where you could have some of those culinary herbs and not be in trouble.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And maybe a little bit of grandpa's old juice,
Yeah, right.
And the stress is so high. Look at Anthony Bourdain. He aged so quickly, right? R.I.P.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's funny you say that you went to Bonsai to Field as Zen, if you will, and then proceeded to find an ulterior Zen, a little spicy. Yeah. This is in relation, like, I think a lot of people can relate to that, even outside of cooking, right?
For sure. It seems like it's a thing that, I find a lot of guys that are really stressful careers in both pottery, bonsai pottery professional and as well as bonsai guys, it's guys that usually have a pretty stressful, like hardcore career that are trying to get away with that. But then they bring to that same like high pressure, striving to be the best attitude.
Yeah. Blinders on. Let's go.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mach 10.
Yeah. That, they say, chefs only have two switches. It's on or off. And like bonsai, it's the same way. Oh, yeah. I think with bonsai, it's like for everybody, there's only two switches. Like, and once it gets turned on, you're just all in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kelly, you've been doing it, what, almost 2 years now?
Yep. About 2 years.
Are you all in? You're deep in the mud and sinking slow?
Oh my gosh, yesterday I probably did like 200 miles.
Look at like any picture from any workshop in Southern California. And like Kelly is there like every time.
It's funny you say that because I literally just told her that. I'm like, this whole week I've seen the photos of you. Sometimes they're a little different. Sometimes the same one like 8 different times now. I'm like, you're popular.
Yeah, I'm trying to
place,
ignore the post.
Embrace the love.
I have a question about this herb. Did you ever try to bonsai it?
No, I didn't actually. I considered the idea, and I saw a lot of the photos online, but the photos online, they're mostly photoshopped. Like when I was still an admin for Bonsai America, people would post these photos all the time of like this fairly nice looking marijuana bonsai, and it was clearly photoshopped. Like it was poorly photoshopped. But as a perennial, the stems are hollow, so they can't be wired. They lose branches frequently, so it's kind of impossible to do anything other than something more towards the Kusamono Shitakusa side of bonsai with pot. Like, having like a legit specimen would be tough to do.
Plus legality.
Yes, yeah, that too. Where I am, the legality would definitely be a consideration. Kelly, not so much, I think.
Yeah, Ohio just passed recreational.
Yeah.
Soon to set in. We'll see what goes on. I don't know. Being from Oregon, I'm like, why hasn't it been here already?
Yes. Seriously.
So much money to be made. But so you went through your cooking and you found bonsai and you went that way, and you've lived mainly in the South the whole time, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I did spend some time in New York. My wife is from Long Island, and I first got into bonsai when I lived in North Carolina. I started getting serious about it when I came here to Mississippi, and I had my own restaurant, and I really needed like a stress outlet, something that was the opposite of that. Because I'm the type of person that gets really, really obsessed about things. I don't know if you could tell from, the whole pottery thing that I'm kind of an obsessive personality. So I wanted something totally different from the cooking thing. And so I thought bonsai was going to be a nice, relaxing difference from that. And yeah, we all know how that turns out.
How was your experience going into growing and things bonsai related within like finding clubs or your support network of friends and people down there?
Oh, wow. I had no support network whatsoever locally. So originally there was a club here in Jackson in Mississippi, and it was founded by one of Guy Guidry's students, Craig Escuday. Guy Guidry and Vaughn Banning used to call him the Doc, but he was one of the original New Orleans flat top 7 or whatever. These guys have developed this flat top bonsai style. Guy and Vaughn are, of course, known for it. But Craig was one of those guys. And he had a club here that closed probably 10 years before I started doing bonsai seriously. So I had no club at all. And when I tried to get this club back together, I guess probably like 24 members showed up, and like not a single one was under the age of 65. It was all like retirees. And I realized really quickly that like what this club was going to be and what these students wanted from me was like, pretty much just to do everything for them and teach it.
Yeah.
Which is not something I was prepared to do, just starting my journey on my own and things like that. So, yeah, I had no resources. The closest club near to me was 3 or 4 hours, which I did join. I joined the New Orleans Bonsai Society, the Memphis Bonsai Society, and the Birmingham Bonsai Society. So, those are all 3 to 4 hours away from me. So I could only go to, a couple of meetings of each of those clubs every year. Yeah. So, this actually turned out to be a real boon for me. No pun intended, I guess you could say, because, I having no local resources and no local teachers, I had to reach out to people all over the place.
You had to make your network.
And so exactly. So that's how I ended up meeting. I met Matthew Winga online at the time. We started talking about trees and stuff like that. He had Katie Bonsai. He still lived in Chicago at the time, but we became friends real quick. And this is like, a couple years before he started selling containers. So I would not be where I am as far as pots and bonsai are concerned today if I had those local resources, actually. So I feel pretty fortunate that I had nothing.
Right. Kelly, have you met Madawinga yet? Did I introduce you at Nationals? But I don't know if you had met so many people. I forgot who you all met.
He was the big guy with all the nice pots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, was your friend helping him set up his table?
Yeah,
the antique
Ricky
pots?
was. Yeah.
Oh, then I probably met him briefly. Yeah, he had antique pots there.
He's super genuine guy. Great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's actually how I got into pots, almost entirely. Like when he first started selling containers, I bought like the first like high-end container that I purchased from him. Like at this point in time, like I still like mostly had sticks, like Walmart ficus bonsai and stuff like that I had chopped back and was trying to turn into something good.
Like I rocks and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I did. That was actually my first tree was like this ginseng ficus that I eventually like hollowed out and planted over a rock. Still have it.
Nice.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so I had mostly crap. Like I had never even really seen excellent bonsai in person. And it wouldn't be until, a couple years later that I had. But I bought this pot from him. And for me, this was like this huge expenditure, like this crazy outlay of money. And it was $200, which looking back now, I'm like, okay, $200. But, I had a bunch of like, cheap Chinese ceramic pots and terracotta stuff from Walmart, and so I bought this $200 container from Matt, and it was like the second or third container he'd ever sold. So that tells you like how long ago this was. He had just started
like early thousands then, early, yeah.
Oh yeah, early days for Matt and myself. So I bought this container, and he couldn't tell me who it was. And the person who sold it to him couldn't tell him who it was. I looked online. I couldn't find any information about the potter. I held the container. I could tell that it was like of obvious quality, like something better than anything else I'd seen before or owned. But nobody could tell me about the artist, why it was worth $200, if it was worth $200, where it came from. All we knew that it was like a really nice looking red clay pot, and it was really well made. And I thought that was just nuts, just crazy. I mean, what it basically meant was that like we as a community in bonsai have been spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars every year on something that we have no justification for its value or really understanding as to why it's valuable or if it is so. And I started looking as I started learning more. I set out to kind of learn about this pot, found the artist. And as I started looking, I realized that just there were crazy, insane ripoffs everywhere online. Like nobody knew anything about anything. It was the Wild West. And, you could find 500 pots for $10 on eBay. And then you could find, $10 pots for $500. There were more of the latter than the former. But, in both cases, somebody was getting ripped off. And so I kind of set about to rectify that in a way that, I knew I was uniquely qualified to do so because I'm kind of a research savant when I put my mind to it.
It shows with the blog. I will say I've used that countless times. My father-in-law, because my wife's from Japan, my father-in-law, I showed him the blog, and he loves historical things and ceramics and stuff. Where they're from in Fukushima, he has a lot of handmade ceramics. He has friends that make handmade wares and things. And it's one of those generational families that do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had gotten those pots I talked to you about when I came back from Japan a while back. And he was like, huh? And he went on a whole search, like straight up Japanese websites. And I showed him yours. He's like, this is amazing.
That's awesome. That's great.
Like, this is great resource. I was like, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, that's super cool. It's really, a lot of the older Japanese potters too, they're like, some of these guys like are still like straight up wearing wooden shoes almost. Like they're not online.
They get this and stuff. Yeah.
I know, exactly. They're not online. They're not doing, the internet. They don't have websites or an internet presence. So like, when they learn about, our Western, love of bonsai and pottery, they're just totally enthused by it. I mean, like Bunzan, for example, Ekison Bunzan, like he is way more famous in America than Japan. And like, when he found out about this, he just thinks it's the coolest thing since sliced bread. He thinks it's just the greatest thing ever that his work is respected here, because it's not respected in the same way in Japan. And it sent him over the moon when he found out about his popularity here in America.
Why is there that discrepancy?
Well, Bunsan is an interesting case, and we can blame the SOBs for that. No pun intended, because most of my friends have actually been students of Boone. Yeah. But Boone students is the reason why Bunsan is so popular in the U.S. So Boone, when he was doing his apprenticeship in Japan, his teacher is the major caretaker for a collection of very famous bonsai owned by an abbot. And this abbot has a wonderful temple nearby where Boone studied, and they manage most of the collection there. And they have 12 trees on display at any one time, and they have hundreds of trees in this amazing back garden. But this abbot, he's got very non-traditional taste in bonsai. He likes Bunjin stuff and, very non-traditional taste, but he is a huge fan of Bunsan. Very unique in that, because Bunsan has never been truly popular because of his outlandish style in Japan. And so Boone picked up on this love of Bunsan from the abbot and brought that back to America, and, imparted that to his students. They caught the bug, and then his students went all over the country and spread the love. And that's so, amazing. We can kind of trace why Bunsan is popular here. And, there are actually a lot of potters that are more popular here than in Japan. And, the reasons for that are, purely cultural and taste related. The Japanese tend a lot more towards shibui things that are just very well made and simple and work well with trees. Whereas American taste can often be a lot more outlandish. And I think Americans are...
Americans.
Americans for sure. I will say Americans in particular, but the West in general, but Americans in particular like things a little bit more outlandish than the Japanese. So there are a lot of potters that are more popular here than in Japan.
Yeah, I was going to ask, does that reflect also in Europe and other Western non-Japanese countries? Okay,
absolutely. In Europe, I think their tastes are a little bit more muted than the United States specifically. I think in the U.S., you definitely see a lot more really fans of really outlandish stuff. But in Europe, there's a similar background to Japan with a long history of cultural art appreciation. And, that cultural art appreciation, while more outlandish than Japan, is still a bit more muted than in America, where everything is fresh and new, and the outlandish and creativity is seen as a high point of art, as opposed to technique and
almost necessity, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So in your travels, then you just went to California recently. I know Kelly studies with a lot of people who have been doing bonsai in a while. Kelly can talk more to that, but from your both experiences there, have you Kelly and Ryan, have you both noticed specifically in California that there are pockets more so of the solidified renaissance of traditional use of pottery instead of this avant-garde style or this new essence in relation to small pockets in the States?
Yeah, I noticed that. Absolutely. There is this world of difference. Yeah. And what I look at when I appraise the collection, I did Larry and Nina Regal's pots when I was in California this week. And Larry's been at it for, 40 years or so. So you can see the beginning of his career and things that he got when he went to Japan in the 80s and things like that. And it's very muted. It's kind of standard tokoname, shibui type stuff. I keep throwing that term around. So this is a good point to kind of point out what it means. So
yeah, please.
When I say shibui, John Naka famously said that all bonsai pots should be shibui, which shibui just means really, really well made, but not ostentatious or egotistical at all. You should never be able to tell the hand of the artist from the pot itself. It should just play second fiddle to the tree. But it should be so well made that every time you look closer, you see a new detail that keeps your interest. There's so Naka famously said that all bonsai pots have to be shibui, but now there's this whole new thing in Japan where there's the opposite of shibui, which is hare or amai. So, these are actually food terms. So shibui is like astringent, but not unpleasantly astringent, like lemon candy or something that puckers your lips, but still delicious. So it's astringent, but in a nice way. And like hare or amai is like sweet, but not like, like, hey, dude, sweet, more like cloyingly sweet, like fruitcake. Like, these kind of pots are like difficult to use with trees. They're like really ostentatious, and they've really only started to become popular amongst collectors in Japan in the last like decade or two. So you can kind of see with, Larry's pots and a lot of the other collections, this original idea that Naka laid out, in the 60s and 70s reflected in the things that he bought then. And then towards the end of the culmination of his career of buying things, a lot more ostentatious painted shohin containers and carved stuff. So it's really kind of neat to see that progression, not only in an individual's collection, but just, it reflects, the way tastes are going in general.
Look, Kelly, does Mel have any ostentatious pots, or to put it a little avant-garde? Is he all just more shibui?
No, as Ryan was talking, I was thinking, like, what have I seen at shows? Because that's when you make your tree the best, right?
Yeah.
And the older folks use, like what he said, just plainer shibui pots. And then the ones that are younger or newer in the art, they'll use like pots that are painted or have a little bit more decoration. However, there is a guy that's 103 here.
Wow.
And he showed a tree. He made it out of cement, but it still was decorative. It still looked good. It was a plain looking pot, so it didn't look like in your face situation. But I think that in the past they used to make their own pots too because they couldn't get them from Japan. But yeah,
absolutely.
Mel's pots are like from his dad, and Mel's 80, so they're probably really, I don't know, I'm guessing they're really old, and none of them look like in your face.
It's an interesting thing, just cultural dynamics, right?
Absolutely. It's both cultural dynamics and just, at some point, probably around like, the early part of the 1970s, like, there became like these splinter movements of potters where they would make things that are just, they don't really work well with trees in a lot of ways. Because, anybody who starts to collect bonsai pottery, to use with their trees eventually comes to a point where you realize like it's a totally separate hobby that sometimes intersect. Right. And as a separate hobby, you can have these other pots that like, for a fact are never going to work with any kind of tree that you can design or that you can imagine, but they're still cool on their own as pots, shelf pots as they're frequently called. And, there are a lot of those out there now, and that's a relatively new thing.
Interesting. To go back real quick, you had talked about getting your first taste, if you will, speaking of cooking and whatnot, of with Madawinga, right? And then going from there, did you go to Japan at that time to find more pots, or like what about?
No,
how did you make a blog? How did this come about?
That was actually kind of funny. So there was only one other really good resource in English at the time, and it was Sam Edge's original blog. And Sam had, at the time, me and Matt, we knew that it was the only really good resource in English for bonsai pottery. We kind of lamented its existence at all because me and Matt didn't get along with Sam. And, when he decided to close it down, Matt was like, why don't you start a blog? And, I think you can do better, more than Sam does. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I guess, I wanted to do a website, and I had this huge database, and I was helping people around in the forums identify their pots and things like that. But I didn't want to go out and do what Sam was doing with his website, because he was doing a pretty good job of it for starters. And when he shut his website down, I decided to start my own, and it just kind of ballooned into what I wanted to do to start with, which was like a real resource for artist marks and signatures. So, yeah, I would definitely say like starting the website was purely accidental to a certain extent. And, now, of course, like Matt and I, we're both friends with Sam again. And, that I don't even remember like why we didn't get along. But, so it started as I wanted to do a website, and, I didn't have, what I wanted to do with it was already being done. So, when it was no longer being done, I just kind of stepped in and filled the gap. Sam actually started another website later, and it's still a great resource for the time that he had it up for Sam. It's Sam Edge's Bonsai Pots. I don't remember the actual link, but if you search for that online, he's always shown some really great stuff and had really great information on there in English.
Yeah, there's one now as you were typing, we're trying to get better at being able to multitask with bringing things in as you're talking about. There's a samedge.wordpress where it talks about Suiseki and other things that he has updated.
Exactly.
Now.
That's it.
That's cool.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, he moved away from bonsai and bonsai pottery collecting, but his website, when I started mine, 10 years ago, was like the end all be all for information in English. It was the only thing that existed, really.
Is he based in Mississippi as well, or where's he at?
No, he started out in California, and he was studying with Boone. Then he moved away from California to Memphis, which is a couple hours north of me.
Right.
So, I've actually visited him a few times up there, and he's got some great stuff.
Nice. There's a quote I want to say to you. Yogi Berra. I've used this quote before on an episode in the past. That if you can't imitate him, don't copy him. That's like you're like exactly what you did. That's awesome. I was like, oh man, that fits so well.
Exactly. It was really just for Sam. It was just like talking about the stuff that he collected and the things that he liked. And when I started the website, it was the same thing. I had this huge database. Well, at the time, it was a huge database, like just on my phone. Yeah. So basically, like I would identify artist marks, and then I would send myself a text message with the mark and the artist on it. So I had this database that was like not even really organized. That was just like on my phone within this like long text message conversation with myself. And so I was able to identify, most of the common stuff out there. It was a couple hundred marks. And, from going to what I liked, with the first few articles on Tofukuji and, famous artists that I enjoyed, things like that, it really quickly became like everything I was doing with bonsai pottery kind of got dumped there. So it wasn't until Matt became serious about selling bonsai containers and had kind of developed into one of the biggest sellers in the world. And when I became more serious about bonsai, I had already shown at the National Exhibition at this point that I actually made it to Japan and got to see a lot of stuff. I think we visited like 30 nurseries in 8 days. It was insane. It was super crazy. Just like, it was awesome. So, it was a long time from when I started the website before I actually made it to Japan. I got to meet some potters.
Hey, Ryan. So your website has like a lot of information. And then when you were here and I was chatting with you, you're just like a computer with bonsai containers.
Yeah, the lectures are just like they're suggestions of things for me to ramble about for 1 or 2 minutes. So they always run over on time, especially when I'm excited. So like... Yeah, it's all just information in my head, I guess.
Well, even when people were asking you questions, you didn't even need like a split second. You just knew the answer. So I kind of have a question. How do people use your website? Well, first off, what's your website and how do people use it? So my website is
http blah, blah, blah. It's Japanese bonsaipots.net. Japanese bonsai pots, all one word. If you get the .net wrong, then, there a couple of other things will take you to the same site, .com, stuff like that. But JapaneseBonsaiPots.net, when I started it, it was pretty much an entirely nonprofit thing. I don't have a sales page there, so it still is. The easiest way to use the website for identification of your bonsai pots, there are 3 different databases of artist marks. And they're Japanese, Chinese, and tokoname marks, which are Japanese from a particular region. If you go there, there's a short little description of how to orient your marks properly. And then you can just kind of go through and, character match, kind of look for the same shapes in other artists' marks. And that's the easiest way to use it. And as long as you can get stuff going upright, it's pretty easy to use.
Mm-hmm. And since you've been studying pots so long, have you ever tried to make your own?
Oh, yes. Yeah, sure. And, I enjoyed doing it and it was fun. And, I'm not bad at it at all. But, it's not something that interests me near as much as like the actual history and appreciation of bonsai pots. When I actually like sit down and like start making pots and then, doing kiln work and things like that, it feels and is very much cooking. So it's like the opposite of why I'm into bonsai pots and bonsai to start with. So, it's very much like cooking or like baking, actually. It's very scientific, very technical. And like the actual work itself, the detail work feels very much like what I do with fine dining. So like, I don't like it at all for what I do in my free time. Like, it's really cool to me to like to have the finished product. And that's awesome. But, I did not like it near as much as I like, studying pots and appreciating other people's work for sure.
That's cool. And that's the way you're not burning a cake.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And you can't work with food at 1300 degrees Celsius. So.
But you can't, there's nothing left.
Yeah. Edible food. Yes.
Yeah, edible. Yeah. Do you consider yourself a professional bonsai appraiser?
Yes, but I guess my reasons for that are that I consider a line cook at McDonald's a chef. So
true. Yeah. And semantics, right?
Really, like if you're a professional cook, if someone is paying you to cook, you're a chef. Period. Chef is a profession. And, I think as an appraiser and identifier of bonsai pots, I do that fairly frequently for money, and there isn't anyone else who can do it. So, yeah, I do consider myself a professional in the field. I would really like it if there were other people that could step up and do it as well. It's been one of my goals to have everybody be able to identify their own containers and understand the market and things like that. So
even a baseline knowledge, right?
Professional. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's super weird when like other people call me a professional or an expert. And it has been since day one because, I've always considered myself just a really dedicated amateur.
When do you feel like your professional or your career in this adventure or avenue started? Like, do you have a specific day you remember like, oh, I guess I'm doing this club meeting and I'm getting paid? That feels good.
When I started the website and it was just like this act of like, putting something out there that I thought an act of revenge, I guess. An act of violence and revenge. After the website was there and I started writing a few blog posts and I was already identifying people's pots online and things like that. And when I started really putting the database in print and like, buying resources specifically for that purpose, like, I would buy like antique books and, vintage books from Japan about bonsai pottery just for, artist marks and to learn a little bit more about what I could translate, which at the time was like next to nothing. In the biographies and things like that. When I started buying research materials for myself just for the site, then I think, my idea about it started to change. Matt, when I was really, really young in bonsai, I think I was at it for like a year, like, like people in a lot of different fields of art and hobby and pursuit, like, they want to make a name for themselves in the community and, they want their work to be recognized. And I was talking to Matt one day about that. And he's like, do just look at, what I've done. If you want to make a name for yourself in bonsai, you need to pick something and be the best at it. And that's true for anything. And, he meant like what he did with Trident Maples at the time. He's always been like the Trident Maple guy. Even back in the forum days before social media was a thing, he was known as like the Trident Maple guy in the United States.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
K80 has always been his thing. So he meant like pick a species or a style or something like that. And I was like, well, I'm pretty good at research, and I'm kind of a savant at that. I spent like, 12, 13 years in college and got a bunch of degrees. And like, I'm uniquely talented in research and remembering things. So I figured, even though he meant to like pick a species, I just picked pots because there's no information out there.
Yeah.
And I started really applying myself to actually like, knowing more, and then making the hugely mistaken move to publish all that information for free for everyone. I mean, my accountant is still like really upset about all this because, it was just a bad financial choice on my part. I don't regret it at all. And I'm being a bit self-deprecating here because everybody should have access to the same information that I have. But it was definitely a bad financial move for sure.
Did you make the website on your own, or did you have a webmaster?
Oh no, I made the website all entirely on my own.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Without a computer. So very Tofukuji-esque with his lack of a kiln in that regard. So awesome. Yeah, the website was originally, the database started out just as text that I would send myself as I found more information and took pictures and things like that. And then, I did the website entirely from my phone.
Wow, that's impressive.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So I still, to this day, I don't have a computer. Like I haven't since I left college in my early 30s. It tells you why I'm uniquely suited to be like a research savant. I haven't had a computer in like 15, 20 years.
So I noticed when you were here, your presentation was just on your phone. Usually people have it on a laptop. Okay, that explains why you did that.
That's
absolutely.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So all the PowerPoint presentations, they're completely written on my phone. I've got like a database of, 100,000 pictures on there. But I mean, every ADHD kid does. I mean,
Guilty. Yeah.
Every kid who's ADHD has got this huge wealth of screenshots and photos that they're never going to use. Yeah. It comes in handy for me because I actually use a lot of them.
I feel so seen.
Yeah.
Validation.
I know your pain. I feel I actually found a use for some of them.
That's a miracle, I'll say.
Absolutely.
You're always telling yourself, this will come in handy someday.
I'm going to get in there and I'm going to organize these into folders. And they'll be difficult to find.
Those folders just say new folder. 1, 2, 3.
Exactly.
Like, what are these ones? Oh, I forgot about those. Blow the dust off.
Exactly.
File cabinet's full. It's like, yeah, cool. You still got a fax machine. The 80s cold.
Yeah. So, I actually, when you asked, your original question about whether or not I had any help. And, so I said I didn't, and that's patently untrue. So I had a lot of help in my original research and identifying artist marks and learning things that I eventually put on the website. When I first started out, identifying pots and learning more, like I just cold called guys that were selling pottery on eBay. I would just send them emails and be like, hey, look, this is a neat pot. Can you tell me more about the artist? And so that's how I met Fukano-san from Yoruzu-in and Toriyumi Atsuishi, who's a good friend of mine from, at the time he was selling for Happy Bonsai on eBay and selling pottery. So when I first started, there were only 2 or 3 sellers on eBay. And I just basically started sending them emails and asking them random questions. And the cool thing is that, in a very Japanese way, they answered back and were super happy that I wanted to know about all this stuff. And so I made some really good friends and contacts that way. Eventually, Toriumi was the first person I actually cold called that I've just messaged about pottery. And he became a good friend. And, eventually he came to the United States with another friend. And I took them on a tour around Gardens of the Northeast. And there's a big article about it in Bonsai Sakai. So, I made a lot of really great friends along the way that helped me find this information that I really owe a lot to. And Toriumi and Fukano-san from Eurozuen were 2 really, really important ones for sure.
So you are the bonsai pot expert, and I'm just kind of curious, since you know so much, probably more than anybody, why don't you sell pots?
Well, I used to quite frequently. I used to sell pots frequently, and I was doing this full time for a while, and it started to become a job. And as somebody that's severely ADD, when anything starts to feel like a job, I have to do it.
It's bored now.
Yeah, I'll get bored with it, and I'll fall out of love quickly. And when I'm not in love with something, it's the switch is off. I could feel myself falling out of love with bonsai as this became more work that I didn't want to be doing. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. This is, I love this stuff too much to, make money on it, whether I need to or not, because I want to stay loving it. To me, it's still I go to a show, a big show, and I'm still just blown away by the trees. I really made this decision. I went to the national exhibition, I think 3 exhibitions ago. So probably, I guess, the 2014 or 15, somewhere around in there. So I guess, it was about 7 or 8 years ago when you factor in COVID. And I didn't see the show at all. I spent the entire time at my vendor table. I got to walk through the show for the last 30 minutes. And, a bunch of the trees had been pulled already. So, I didn't, I enjoyed seeing my friends and had fun after hours and stuff, but I didn't enjoy the bonsai at all. And I was like, this is just bullshit. It wasn't fun at all. Yeah. I got into pottery and bonsai pottery because of the trees. And, I'm still first and foremost a bonsai tree guy. And, when I'm not getting to see the show, then, there's no reason for me to be there or be interested in it. So I just quit selling pots entirely. I no longer vend. And, anything that I have is pretty much staying in the collection. Every now and again, I'll sell something to someone that I think needs it more than I do. But that's why. It's for my own love of the game, I guess.
How big is your collection?
Probably 400, 500 pot.
Holy shnikes.
Probably 400, 500 pots. Maybe I would say 200 of those are American and Western. So American and European. And then the rest are Japanese. And probably around, I don't know, maybe 150 in use or so. I've slimmed down my bonsai collection quite a bit as I've gone back to being a chef, just as a matter of time and function. And so, probably around 150 in use, probably around 75 with legit trees.
150 trees you have that you take care of?
Yes. It used to be a lot more, plus experiments going on. So for a long time, I was involved in a business where we were working on taking the the hormone research and work that was done by weed growers and applying it to bonsai. So different kinds of hormone research. So at one point I had like thousands of trees and seedlings that we were doing research on. So that was when it got to like the height of like way too much stuff. And then, I kind of scaled back all of my development stuff. I still have, a fairly good amount of stuff in the ground that's just growing out. But not nearly as much as I used to have. I think at the high point, I probably had like, 500 to 1,000 trees and seedlings and stock plants. Wow. So yeah, now it's maybe a couple hundred.
You spend more time watering than anything else.
Yes, I did. I did. When I first went to Japan was the first time I invested in an automatic watering system because I realized my wife was spending like 2.5 hours a day.
And she's like, "Where's my payment?"
Yeah, exactly.
Show me the money, Tom Cruise.
Just putting up with me and bonsai in general. And, I'm really lucky because it makes me happy. She says, do it, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Same boat. Yeah. Same boat for me. Yeah.
So, but I wasn't willing to put that on her. So I got an automatic watering system the first time I went to Japan. And, that's actually like made it a lot easier on both of us.
Are you doing the drip line or what are you using?
So there's multiple different attachments that go to the same system that runs through the whole backyard. So some are drips, some are sprayers, and then some are just like overall misters that'll go for like, inside the greenhouse and for the tropicals and things like that, which I don't have that many of anymore.
How big of a property do you have? I mean, this sounds like you're either amazing it through like in Japan, with subway trains or
so like all of my stock I grew at my parents' house. The stuff in the ground and things like that, things that only need to be watered like, once a week that are in nursery cans and stuff like that. That stuff's at my parents' house and they've got several acres like right on a golf course. But my actual like backyard is just around half an acre. So
okay. So with your parents' place, do you do like pot and ground where you can pull it out and then do it? Nice. That's definitely nursery.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I have some stuff in the ground as well.
So you're a quasi nurseryman as well, then. So
yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
You are a savant.
I became obsessed. There was a long time I became obsessed with like using hormone therapy to do various things we could do with bonsai. My partner at the time was a Harvard-educated businessman. He actually left bonsai entirely. But so we were obsessed with doing a few things, and we actually managed to do a couple. And we were gonna start a company selling a lot of these hormone products. But things like producing buds from scars, which is theoretically entirely possible. So like, scar tissue for trees is mostly undifferentiated cells and meristematic tissue. So the meristematic tissue is the interesting part because, that's stem cells. So, and we know that, current science in a popular way tells you that stem cells can become anything. So the way rooting hormone works is it turns stem cells, that meristematic tissue, into roots. So it's entirely possible to where you can create a scar on a tree and get it to pop a branch in the same way that you can get an air layer or a cutting to produce roots. It's just a matter of finding the right hormone mix. So we were doing things like that and things like accelerating growth for rapid trunk development. And, we came up with some really cool things like, we developed this growing compound that made plants grow so fast that you could almost hear them. They would collapse before they lignified. So like we destroyed some really cool stuff. We developed like a back budding serum that's made that it worked in a really neat way. It was designed to turn apical plants basal. So, it would open up any existing back buds on the tree, which, the usefulness for us as bonsai enthusiasts is pretty apparent. And, it worked. At least the first couple of iterations did, but it would kill every apical bud on the tree and then all the buds would open. So yes, it worked, but it was way too scary to use. but we eventually disbanded, and I kind of lost interest in that. So now it's just like bonsai for me, and you know, the trees in the ground that I'm doing are just things that I want to develop in the future.
So it's more likely those hormonal outputs went to the culinary herb side of life.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. The things we were working with are things that even like those growers have abandoned because, you know, there's no telling what some of this stuff does to you physically. Like it's not organic in any kind of way, even though that, you know, the phytohormones and hormone analogs we're using are organic products. You know, it's there's no telling what kind of that stuff does to you when you're ingesting it. So super useful for bonsai, but nothing else.
Nice. Two-part question I got from me. A, have you learned Japanese or anything for it? And the second part to that, traveling to Japan, do you feel it's a necessity now, or can you get by, or do you think people in general should learn some Japanese to be able to experience that better?
So I only know Japanese as it concerns to driving directions.
That's good.
And I'll explain why in a minute. And my field. So, you know, I can read kanji fairly well, but only as it concerns pottery and bonsai pottery specifically. So I have almost entirely field specific knowledge of Japanese when it comes to my language skills. Like I can mostly translate biographies and things like that. But that's it. Like if I have to sit down and read like a basic like language textbook, I wouldn't get any of it off the bat. Like, you know, even reading a menu, it would be impossible for me. So my language skills are very much field specific. And do I think it's necessary for people to like learn Japanese or travel to Japan? Absolutely not. But I think it's paramount in importance. It's not necessary, but I think you should anyway. I mean,
facilitation
it's like,
purposes, right?
Yeah,
and just ease and cultural understanding.
Is it necessary to visit the Louvre if you're a great artist? No, absolutely not. Should you? Well, hell yeah. I mean, it's the greatest art that's ever been made is there. You know, even if you're not going to be inspired by it, you know, you should at least, you know, check out the work of the old masters and, you know, check it out. You know, is it necessary? No, but you should definitely do it anyway.
So in food terms, it's like going to Louisiana and not having beignets.
Exactly. 100%. Yes. That's exactly the same thing. It's definitely not necessary, and you can still have a good time with bonsai without going to Japan, but you should still 100% go. It's not necessary, but it's definitely sufficient for a good time. I mean, you learn, you know, I don't know anybody that goes to Japan for the first time that's really into bonsai that doesn't like come home and want to like just burn their collection to the ground unless they're already like really good. Because when you go, it's just the level of skill and the level of material is so high that, you know, understanding what is possible just becomes a totally different thing. Like, you know, you realize that you've been setting the bar too low because you didn't know where the bar was until you see this stuff in person. And then you see the bar is like way up here. And then you come home and you're like, okay, well, there's the bar now. And it's higher. You know, so, you know, it's even if you're doing bonsai at a high level, you know, and you're doing a non-Japanese style naturalistic bonsai or something, you know, I still think it's really an advantageous thing to go and check out the bonsai there. And then, you know, the other thing I mentioned is my language skills involve like giving directions while driving. So like I took a friend of mine, Toriumi. This is fun. This is fun stuff. So I took a friend of mine, Toriumi, both bonsai professionals, and Indo-san. Indo was the proprietor at the time of Asahi Bonsai, and so Toriumi was an apprentice at Yorozu Inn. So both Shohin Bonsai guys. And I took them on a tour of gardens in the Northeast. But the purpose, kind of the ulterior motive for the tour, was me to teach them to drive in the United States. so that they could go to all of the different other parts of the U.S.
No pressure.
So, yeah, exactly. And I had to kind of learn driving directions when I almost died. It was just a horrible thing. Like we were on the New Jersey Turnpike.
Oh God, that
like
happens regardless of directions.
Away, two exits away from the Pennsylvania line, and Indo-san, who is 72, spoke no English, is driving. And Toriumi, which we're like 4 or 5 days into the trip at this point, we're exhausted. He's passed out in the back, and he's the only one that speaks English. And so I'm trying to tell Indo-san to get over and merge so that we can get off before we get to Pennsylvania. And like, he doesn't understand what's going on. He's swerving into the other lane. It was just this horrifying thing where I thought I was going to die. We had to stand on the side of the road for a couple hours afterwards. It was horrifying. So I had Toriumi teach me a few driving instructions at that point.
Yeah.
Just in case that happens. So those are my only two language skills in Japanese, both learned out of necessity.
Life and death.
Absolutely. And yeah, both of those guys are just, they were really, really cool and wonderful. The article they did was like a big 4-page spread in Bonsai Sakai. It was really neat. We went to New York City, so they got to see like the United States in both, some of the best gardens in the U.S. as well as like experience the U.S. So it was really cool for them.
Well, enough of the fast food and everything.
That was the first place they wanted to go check out a McDonald's here. I was like, you guys have McDonald's in Japan. And but immediately, whenever you go to like Bill's place in Rochester, like there's a Red Roof Inn up the street, but it's like the nicest Red Roof Inn that ever existed. So it's like the Denver Group place you have to go if you're just going to visit Bill's garden. So there happens to be a McDonald's like right next door. So it all worked out. After I picked them up at the airport, they got to eat their first meal at McDonald's, and it was a good time.
Hey, Ryan, what do you think Westerners get wrong about bonsai pots?
I think in my lectures series, there's one particular slide and statement that I put into all 3 of my overview lecture series. So like each of my overview beginner lecture, whatever you would call them, it's like a mix of each one is a mix of beginner, intermediate, and advanced information. So nobody, no matter what level they're at the club, gets bored. Plus some cat pictures, just because it's dry information and everybody likes cat pictures. And so when they're related, it all works out for everybody. But in addition to that, the one thing that's in every one of those lectures is that tokoname is not a synonym for quality. Like that's the one thing that I want people to take away, and that's been misconstrued in the United States for a really long time, and was especially prevalent when I started. It's like, they're some of the greatest bonsai potters who've lived came from tokoname, but also some of the worst also come from tokoname. If you ask your average man on the street that knows a little bit about pottery, what tokoname is famous for pottery wise, he's going to say like toilets and roof tiles. It's not like Kyoto and Seto are famous for this wonderful painted stuff. And Kutani is famous for like this cooperative partnership between potters and painters and their gosai pots, their 5-color painted pieces. There are areas that are really famous for different things. Bizen is famous for like really rustic, everyday use household items, but tokoname is famous for toilets and roof tiles because that's what they make there. And that's what, all the toilets are made in tokoname. That's what they're most famous for, for somebody with just a basic knowledge of pottery and doesn't dig on stuff with holes in the bottom. Well, other than toilets. But
I was like, wait, caveats.
beyond that, for us with bonsai pots, like this is totally not related to anything else pottery wise in Tokoname.
Yeah.
And, it's important to remember this because they make absolute trash there. There's just some of the worst bonsai pots that you can buy, that have come out of Tokoname. And also some of the best that you can buy have come out of Tokoname. So, it's like saying something is from Ohio. Like, what does it tell you? Is it a Dale pot? Do you not want to buy it because of your past history with Dale? Did Rob make it? Is it a Tycho Earth?
Right.
April it doesn't
Grigsby,
tell you anything about the potter. It's just a plate.
When do you think that started? Like, did that just become like it started not the word the fetish or like Japanophiles that way, but is it just cultural or
in the 1930s? There was a company that was formed. So in the 1930s is where bonsai started becoming popular among the nobility, right? If you read the history of bonsai, you start to see that this is when shimpaku start to become really valuable, and you get a lot of people collecting them from the mountains. They didn't start doing that until the turn of the century. So bonsai starts becoming like a pastime that garners money. And, all of these potteries start springing up that are, kind of imitating this Chinese stuff that bonsai artists wanted at the time. And at the same time in Tokoname, a company was formed that was just catering to bonsai professionals and artists to buy production pots, more or less. So the Tokoname Yuyaku was formed, and they published like this, little leaflet. I wouldn't call it a catalog the way we do in today's terms, but it was the first Tokoname catalogs were published around then, just shortly pre-World War II. And so that catalog and that company, it stuck around. And in the 1950s and 1960s, when the first and second generation Japanese Americans that founded bonsai in the U.S., Yuji Yoshimura on the West Coast or on the East Coast, and John Naka on the West Coast, kind of brought bonsai to a more mainstream attraction than just the military personnel who were obsessed with it in Japan at the time. The only place you could get decent bonsai pots was from this company. So this catalog and its existence and their, ability and willingness to ship to the West created this kind of
they own the market.
Yeah, exactly. There wasn't anything else.
Yeah.
And as a result, it became associated, the name Tokoname became associated with quality. When the reality is, some of the best Tokoname potters that have ever lived never even sold things to the catalog. It's really just a loose conglomerate of a lot of Tokoname potters, but not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. And that happened to ship to the West, and so that's where this misinformation came from, and it stuck all the way until the early part of the 2000s.
I would say I still see that influence based on bonsai auction pages or things now with Tokoname. So people like boom, 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 putting it
exactly
that provenance of just the word alone brings this generated idea, like you're saying. That's is there a big influence of that still in California, Kelly? Do you know of? Like, is it talked about in that way? Because there's still so many people who are older generationally and that way. Do you know of anyone?
No, I was going to mention to Ryan, I know your biggest thing is like Tokoname is not synonymous with quality. So here I've noticed, I think this maybe goes across the board, not just in California. People will turn the pot over. So when I was new, I'm like, why are people turning the pot over? Like, what's the big deal? So they'll turn the pot over. They're like, oh, there's a chop. I go, what does that mean? Does that mean it's good or bad? Like, cause I used to make pots. So I wasn't like an artist or anything, but I would just look at the pot. I'm like, there's nothing special about it. Someone else could make that same pot. So I think people think if there's a chop, particularly if there's a chop and a handwritten like Asian character, somehow it's valuable. And I noticed when you looked at some of my pots.
Oh, may have lost her just for a minute.
The chop signature means something.
Kelly, we lost you there. Can you repeat that last part?
Oh.
When you said you looked at your pots.
Oh, some of them didn't have a chop, and they were more valuable than the ones that had a chop or a signature on the bottom. So I feel like people think a chop means something, even though nobody we're like, what does it say? No one ever knows how to read them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And, that goes to the same thing as I think it's funny that you quoted me directly with tokoname is not a synonym for quality, because I hammer that through.
You did.
I can tell you did come to like 3 of my lectures.
education certified
multiple times. I do hammer that point home. It's funny to hear it quoted directly back at me. But yeah, the same way that tokoname is kind of meaningless, a chop or a signature is meaningless too, unless you know what it says. Like, the only thing that determines the value of a container is who made it, not that whoever made it signed it or stamped it. It's who made it. And so, being able to identify those marks is the only way to actually truly identify value. I can look at a container and say, without looking at the artist mark, and say that's from tokoname, or that's from Seto, or, that's American. But I can't tell you value until I look at the bottom. And even if there isn't a mark, I can start to tell you, who made it, what era it was made in, but from the clay, things like that. And so the only thing that determines value is the actual artist, and not the region they're made in, or whether or not they signed it. There's a lot of people that sign just awful stuff, and a lot of it's, some of it's valuable, but some of it's not.
Yeah.
What about age and patina? Oh, sorry, Kevin.
No, you're good.
So patina, a really famous potter told me once that patina was nothing but dirt, cracks, and chips, and it really doesn't play a role in bonsai. And actually, somebody echoed that in a comment on one of my lectures last week on social media. And, that's just a totally incorrect way of looking at things. Patina is everything when it comes to building a convincing composition for what we do with bonsai. So for me, as a working definition, bonsai, what we do is we artistically create through techniques the image or representation of an aged tree from nature that either invokes or evokes an emotional response. And so to evoke an emotional response would be, a tree that looks like a tree that you have in your memory. So a broom style bonsai would be a good ideal of something that's evocative. Whereas something that invokes like an emotional response would be like the wild deadwood compositions of Chimera. These don't even look like really old trees. Like, the sculptural deadwood is just outlandish, and it's balls out there, man. There aren't any trees that look like this, but it invokes this emotional response. It creates this emotional response by, touching the majesty of nature that we recognize from other places. So, but what's important for us here with patina is this idea of an aged tree. So when we look at Yamadori, we like them from the mountains, not because of their foliage, because it's often pretty awful. And it's not because they're easy to get, because, man, have you seen like Morrow or Randy, taking some of these 100-pound trees down from 8,000 feet? It's crazy. And, some of them need a helicopter to be flown out. So it's tough to get a hold of these trees. So we like them because they're aged. By having natural age, they get us that much closer to our goal of a representation of an aged tree, because they're actually aged. And when we match our tree to a container, for the Japanese, one of the things that they look at is that the tree should look as if it has grown in that container for its entire life. So, for a truly harmonious composition, they should be a unit. They should look like they've never been separate. And a pot that doesn't have visible age is going to automatically be jarring in your composition with an aged tree. And it's equally true for a tree that's young, but still awesome. Like there's some just amazing bunjin and literati deciduous bonsai that are still young, and they're meant to give an image of youngness. They're supposed to look young. To plant one of those in an extremely aged container is just as jarring. So when we create successful compositions, we want a container with patina. So it's very, very important, I think, not only for us as bonsai artists, but also when we look at our containers and collecting them, patina is really important for value.
Mm.
What if it's a trash pot, but it's got a lot of patina?
So, there is such a thing as patina value. Now, a pot with really, really great patina that's been used for, 50 years. That's just, it's from the 70s. It's not a nice pot, but it's got wonderful patina. It's a $10 pot without it. It's a $100 pot with it. So patina value can bring the value of a container up significantly if it's a cheap container. If it's an expensive container, then having a nice patina that's not too much, but still pretty nice, definitely increases the value. The maxim, I think for the Japanese, and this is, I think true across the board for collectors. If you have two identical containers, same artist, same region, same year, everything is the same, identical. And one has great patina and the other doesn't. The one with patina will almost always be worth more.
That's interesting, because how do you dictate what's quote unquote, air quotes listener, trash comparatively to, like, say, Dan Robinson, where not that anything he does is trash, but he is a sworn user of rocks. And that, right? Where's the not boundary, but where's the line drawn, if there is one in the sand, that's like, I hate to say dictates or regulatory rules, but how does this come about?
So value, that's a tough thing. That's actually a really complicated topic. But, I think there are like 8 basic things that, determine the value of a bonsai container, both to collectors and to just users of bonsai. So the market is determined by like 8 factors. The first, it's just business 101 is popularity, supply and demand. Like the more popular things are always going to be worth more. You would like to think it's quality, but it's not. That's like 5th on the list. There are things that are really popular and really awesome that are not very well made. So like popularity is the number one thing that determines value. The second is usability. So like across the board, things that work well with trees are almost always more valuable than things that don't. So if you have, say, 2 containers from the same artist, and one is outlandish and the other is a little bit more muted and would work very well in a display, generally the one that works well in a display is going to be more valuable. There are exceptions to that, but that's a good general rule. Third is rarity. So like how many exist? Just like with some, our first popularity, supply and demand really does control all markets. And rarity, and there are 2 different varieties. The 7th is the second, but rarity is one that determines value. So, for example, there's a really famous potter, Koito Taizan. We know for a fact that he made 200 pots, and that's it. He's really popular and he's really loved for his whimsical pots. But we know he only made 200 of them because Kyozo Murata commissioned him to make 200 pots, and he made them. And then he was appointed to this really big, important ambassadorship job, and he never made another pot. So, as a result, there are like 10 times more forgeries of his work than there are actual examples that exist. Oh, wow. So this rarity creates value. And there's also this thing that's a little further down the list, which is self-imposed rarity. That creates value, and that can be either a function of I can only make so many pots in a week because I make them in a way that's better but really stupid when it comes to production. So like when you're carving a pot out of a single block of clay, this creates a much stronger container than like wheel throwing or slab building a container.
Yeah.
Like you have a single block of clay. There are no joints, there are no seams. Just, it's intuitive that it's going to be a stronger pot, but it's also really, really terrible way to make pottery if you're going to make a lot of it, or you're trying to make a living, because even the best potters who do this Kuranuki method, carve out of a single block of clay, like at the height of their careers, they can only do 4 to 10.
Sounds very archaic in a way.
Yeah,
it's
like, really, really hard. It's a terrible way to make pottery.
Yeah.
But it does make a stronger pot. So this kind of self-imposed idea of rarity really adds to value. There are some examples where that self-imposed rarity is a lot more literal. Like Kutani Eco only releases like 70 pots a year, and he releases no seconds. That's like none in the grand scheme of things. So like of some of the greatest potters that are out there for bonsai pots, like there are tens of thousands of their works. And, for only 70 pots a year, this guy's only going to have less than 1,000 in the fullness of time. That's this idea of self-imposed rarity. That they're going to be valuable and continue to be valuable. So like what goes into value is very much market forces and popularity. What the Taiwan bonsai guys really changes the market these days. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's what people love. That's what determines what's valuable.
That's interesting, because it's always that application of like you have beginners searching for material pots, you have medium to more advanced, and then you have the what I call the veteran, or people who've been in it for like that 103-year-old in California, like Kelly said earlier.
Yeah.
How would you give, I don't want to say broad term tips or generalized tips, but how would you give tips to somebody, or those three specific groups of people, if we did it that way? How would you give a rundown to each person of like what to look for, what's good, what's best to start out with, what's good to just stay away from? And I'm assuming all this is probably generational as well, right? Outside of personal investment of just like, that's given to me by my teacher, or that's given to me by this person who's no longer with us, just like a tree. It may not be the best tree, but it's that emotional context too. So how would you give those tips to someone in those three segments or three departments of people, if you could?
I think in all three of those segments, I would say that the most important thing is to buy what you like, period. Like, and it doesn't matter if you're buying for investment purposes as an advanced collector, or if you're buying, just for sticks to grow in your backyard and you're just starting to get into it. Still buy what you like, because as you learn more about bonsai, your tastes are going to change and they're going to evolve, and you're going to start to recognize quality. So, for those advanced collectors, by the time they're asking themselves this question, they're going to be able to recognize quality. And, you don't have to point and say, you should buy this because it's better quality. They already know at this point. And for people just starting out, buy what you like as long as it's horticulturally sound. There should be that addendum. As long as there's a hole in the bottom and you know how to wire in the screen, then beyond that, buy what you like. Buying things, bonsai pottery for investment value is just like starting a business in bonsai. The old joke is how do you end up with $1 million in bonsai? Start with $2 million in bonsai. So yeah, exactly. It's not ever going to be something that's investment valid. Your accountant's never going to be like, you should diversify into bonsai pots.
Yeah, you're making a great choice with your life. Keep going. Yeah,
exactly.
You're so smart.
Never going to say this. Ever. At best, he might allow you like a personal purchase here and there as existing inventory, but it's still.
So it's safe to say that thing, listeners, we could say, listener, don't tell your partner it's expensive. Just tell them it was emotional buy.
Exactly. Yes. Just hope that you don't have to get into a reciprocal relationship where actually a really good friend of mine, the guy that designed my logo, like every time his wife finds a new tree in the garden, he has to buy her a new piece of jewelry. So he like hides trees and things like that. But as long as you're not to that,
we can edit that out.
Yeah, as long as you're not to that point. Then I think you're okay. But it's never going to be something that's a good investment. Bonsai die. I've been to gardens in Japan that have like hidden funeral homes, like literally like a half an acre of dead trees and things. And these are some of the greatest gardens that exist. Like, trees do die, even with the best of care out there. So, it's never going to be an investment thing. It's not something to make money at. And pots are the same way. Tastes change. The market changes. If the Taiwanese buyers that are really influential right now, all of a sudden, decide they don't like something that's been popular for the last 5 years, the market falls out. And, that, daisuke or something that you paid $4,000 for is now worth $2,000. That was a great investment, 10 years ago when you paid $500, and then it was a super awesome investment, an 8-bagger when it was worth $4,000, but now it's worth $2,000. And if you bought it at $4,000, then you're just screwed.
Right.
Is it still a wonderful pot? Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, just
amazing.
not as monetarily available.
It's not a predictable market. And even for me, and I know the market pretty well, I would say, I get surprised all the time. So it's never something that you should buy for reasons other than I like it and I want to collect it and I want to use it with my trees. So, my
advice,
the
stock market, and we're just
game is buy what you like.
Yeah. So it's like the stock market. We're just buying stocks to what maybe we like and see if they sit on it for years.
Actually, that's some of the best That's some of the best advice. Some of the greatest, advisors have ever given. Peter Lynch says, "Buy what you know."
Yeah.
And he's one of the greatest stock market investors ever. He was the Warren Lynch of 30. The Warren Buffett of 30 years ago. Now I've got this Peter Lynch, Warren Buffett concept in my head, and I'm going to be stuck on that all day. But anyway, so he was one of the greatest investors ever, and that was his advice: is buy what you know. Yeah. If you're sitting in the PetSmart parking lot, it looks dead empty. You're like, these people can't possibly be making money. But if you sit there for an hour, you'll see that the parking lot has filled like 4 times. People only spend 10 minutes in there. They're busy, even though it doesn't look like it on the surface.
Right, because it's a circling door. Right.
Invest in what you know. So, I think bonsai pottery is the same way. Buy what you know, buy what you like.
So continuing this idea, as you said, I just heard you say, the death of a component of a tree. Would you say a breaking of a pot could be considered death, but there's a new life with kintsugi? Where does that fall into place? Because I know our co-host Ryan, he does do that, and my wife's friend is training and doing classes under a really renowned kintsugi, right? Artiste, shokunin mentality kind of deal person, and the work she's been able to do is great. She gave us a wedding gift of 2 things becoming one, right? Where does that fall into bonsai? How can we utilize it?
So for bonsai pottery, real museum quality kintsugi is prohibitively costly. Like, just as an initial outlay for a small container by a professional repairer that does museum quality work, for actual museums that does teaware and vases and things other than just bonsai pots, you're looking at $500 to $1,000 just to start with a real gold repair.
And this is not any historical context or emotional like that.
Exactly. So unless you have an emotional attachment to the container or it's extraordinarily valuable, it's a difficult proposition out of the gate unless you're doing it yourself. You frequently see memes shared around on social media where there are examples where the value of the item has actually been improved by being broken and repaired. The number of these examples are exceedingly low. There's like a handful of examples where gold repair has actually improved upon the original value of the item. For the most part, it will restore part of the value of the item, but never all of it. So something that's been broken and repaired with gold will almost always be worth less than it would be if it were whole and entire. And this is especially true of very valuable pieces. Now, if it's a good repair, it will restore a good part of that value. So, between 50 and 80% of the value can be restored if the repair is done very well. But it will never be worth what it was worth before. As a matter of sentimentality, it's certainly worth it. And I've used it on things that were worth less than the cost of the repair because I wanted them whole and entire again. So it is something to consider for that, for sure.
Are there any available people doing that kind of work in the States?
So there actually used to be one guy that did bonsai-specific pottery exclusively, but he doesn't anymore. The only person that I have used in the United States that does museum-quality repairs of both non-kintsugi and kintsugi gold repairs is Lakeside Pottery in the Northeast. You can find their website and address on my blog in the table of contents. There's an article about kintsugi, and it'll take you to his website. But he does excellent work in repair. He does have some lower cost items, lower cost options as well. For people that want something repaired for sentimental reasons, options that use modern metals instead of gold. Like brass that looks very, very close to gold, or copper, which will actually build verdigris, patina, and looks really old, really quick. So he offers some lower cost items, and he does excellent museum quality original and kintsugi repairs.
Yeah, that's great information because I had no idea. I only knew people trying it, via DIY, via YouTube, or Michael's kintsugi repair kit. I don't know if they have those, but maybe they're good on something.
They do now. Like, it's become a popular thing. Like, kintsugi, I think, at its core, it's something that's super cool for starters. Like, it is the essence of this misused term, wabi-sabi. It's about finding the beauty in the history and flaws of an item. I mean, this idea of the beauty and elegance of fracture and poverty, like this wabi-sabi idea, I think is really encapsulated in kintsugi. You're not trying to hide a break that happened in the piece's history. In fact, you're highlighting it with the most valuable metal known to man.
Right.
That is, finding beauty in the flaws. That's a solid marriage. That's what that is.
Hey, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. We're hoping maybe you can join us again for another kind of topic.
To.
Okay. Can you remind everyone how they can get a hold of you, what your website is, your consulting services?
So my name is Ryan Bell, and my Facebook and social media handle is Michael Ryan Bell. So you can find me on social media. Michael is not actually my name, but it became so pervasive because of the bonsai thing that, like, my mom would call me that as a joke before she passed, like, just to make me mad. But now it doesn't make me angry anymore. But it is Ryan. But you can find me on social media under Michael Ryan Bell. My website is JapaneseBonsaiPots.net, all one word. And you can email me at gastronome@aol.com. That's gastronome with a G, because I'm a diminutive fellow in the center of the word. So gastronome, Gnome. A little chef joke there for you.
I was like, yep. Gastronomical.
Yeah, it tells you exactly how long I've been using that chef joke too, at AOL.
Oh, there you go. You got mail. There's so many things that you have so much pervasive knowledge with, and we appreciate. This is a great episode. My mouth hurts just from laughing so much.
Yeah, my face hurts.
Well, we'd love to have you on again. This was a great conversation. And then our co-host can be on too. I haven't laughed this hard with a group of friends in a while because it's just,
it was fun,
I laugh with my family, but this is great.
Well, chefs just get each other, man.
Yeah, in the bullshit too. In the bullshit too. What's your travel like this year? Are you going to do any more traveling, or how is
No,
the
I'm not
future?
actually.
Is it only via Zoom?
I did that California tour, I wouldn't have. I didn't intend on traveling at all this year. My restaurant is up for a James Beard Award this year.
Congratulations again. That's amazing.
We're at the semifinalist stage.
That's
so
amazing.
The judging was like going on while I was in California, so I was like sweating it the whole time. I wouldn't have done the California tour if it had been anybody other than like Bob or Bill Belavanus who asked me. Like, I adore Bob, and I've known Bob for years. Bob and Miranda are just wonderful. So that's probably going to be the only travel I do this year. There'll be a few Zoom presentations here and there, but I won't be traveling for Bonsai again.
So Zoom's the best way for clubs to do any kind of availability.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you mind saying pricing points? Do you have sliding scale, or in that way, how do you work those in?
So there is a sliding scale for some charitable organizations and museums for my appraisal work, but lectures are just across the board, or $300 to $350 depending on the travel. They last between an hour and a half and 4 hours, depending on how many questions the audience has and how long they want me to talk. So on average though, they're about 2 hour lectures, and there are dozens to choose from. I kind of recommend that all clubs start with my 3-part overview series, which contains like a mix of beginner, intermediate, and advanced knowledge, so nobody gets bored. But they all covered the topics of like history, classification, appreciation, and identification of bonsai containers. And so it's different aspects of each of those topics in each lecture.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, man.
This is great. This is great. Kelly, thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly.
You guys.
I just learned so much. It was like, oh man, I gotta listen to this one multiple times just because it's like there's so much information. Yeah, we'd love to have you on again in the future, and thank you again for being your introduction to the podcast world. We really
I'm glad we found time to do it, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No doubt.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, keep us updated with the chef and everything with that. Okay.
Will do.
All right. See you, bud. The Bonsai Time Podcast has been horticulturally crafted by Kevin Ferris, Ryan Houston, and Kelly Louie. And if you want even more bonsai magic, don't forget to check out the episode notes and full show extras at bonsai-timepodcast.com. If you're loving the show, help us grow like a thriving juniper. Like, subscribe, share, and spread the bonsai love. Got questions, ideas, or fan mail? Send it to bonsai-timepodcast@gmail.com. Your message might make it onto a future episode. Or everywhere you scroll, just search Bonsai Time Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and catch our TikTok snips at Bonsai Time Pod. Follow the team on Instagram at Kevin_Ferris Bonsai, at Bonsai with Kelly, and Ryan at Invivo Bonsai, and InvivoBonsai.com. Thanks for tuning in. Keep pruning, keep growing, and always bonsai on.